This video will touch on how muscle growth actually happens, what the best repetition range is to use to grow your muscle, and how to use other repetition ranges to keep you in the gym for years to come. Before we get into the different rep ranges and which is best for muscle growth, I'll first cover how muscle actually works in a gym setting and what we need to do to make them grow. The muscles in our body are made up of different fibers. There are multiple classes and subclasses to these muscle fibers, but the main ones we need to worry about are type 1 and type 2 muscle fibers. Type 1 fibers are your more endurance-based fibers. They can last for a long period of time without fatiguing, but aren't very good at producing much force. These are the fibers used in long-distance running, or in our case, high-rep training that isn't close to failure. These fibers aren't great at lifting heavy weights and usually don't have a great capacity for growth, but they recover relatively quickly. That's where type 2 fibers come in. Type 2 fibers don't have a great level of endurance, so they can't handle long periods of work and fatigue relatively easy. However, they can produce a lot of force in their short periods of work. This makes them ideal for lifting heavy weights or for short bursts of high intensity activity like sprinting. Type 2 fibers have a great capacity for growth, so these are the muscles that make us look big. They also take a long time to recover between sessions due to the high level of force they produce. Different muscles have different amounts of type 1 and type 2 fibers, and this varies even further from person to person. When it comes to resistance training or lifting weights, when going through a set of exercise, let's say a set of 12 repetitions of a bench press at a moderate weight, our muscles tend to use the type 1 fibers at the start of the set when we are less fatigued and the weight feels lighter, then progress to using the more type 2 fibers at the end of the set when the weight feels heavier, we are more fatigued and we are closer to failure. To recap, when performing a set of 10 to 12 reps, our muscles tend to start with the type 1 fibers at the start of the set, then move to the type 2 fibers towards the end of the set when we're closer to failure. The type 2 fibers have a bigger growth capacity, so training closer to failure should facilitate more growth. So how does this translate to the best rep range for growth? First, it's important to note that all rep ranges use a spectrum of muscle fibers. It's just the rep ranges that use heavier weights for lower reps tend to recruit the type 2 fibers from the get-go, and the ones that use lighter loads for more reps tend to take a longer time to get to those type 2 fibers which have the bigger growth capacity. It's also important to note that heavier loads produce more fatigue, so using these heavier loads can take a longer time to recover between sessions. So using these sets of 1 to 5 reps for heavier loads can make it quite difficult to get the training volumes needed, number of hard sets per week, to get this growth response. And using lighter loads for higher reps can take quite a long time to get through a workout and also leave you feeling quite beaten up after each session for the next couple of days due to the buildup of metabolites that come with this type of training. So using sets of 15 to 30 repetitions can also make it quite difficult to get the training volumes needed for growth due to the time it takes to actually complete a workout and the soreness we get from this type of workout, which makes the subsequent workouts harder to complete. So where does that leave us? Well, using a mix of all rep ranges is great for stimulation, but also quite difficult to practically implement. So why not get the best of both worlds from the 1 repetition range? That rep range being between 6 and 14 repetitions on each set of exercise. Why this rep range? Well, for a few reasons that we won't cover in this video. The reasons we will cover are: 1, this rep range allows us to fully recruit all muscle fibers in any given set, leading to greater stimulation and growth with adequate recovery, of course. 2, you can fit more training volume in during your week, leading to greater mechanical tension, which is a big driver for muscle growth, and leading to more stimulation of the total muscle fibers in that said muscle. 3, you won't feel so beat up during the session or in between sessions, which will make you more likely to train more and actually enjoy your training. Before I discuss this further, I'll mention that the recommendations and information I just gave you about the repetition ranges are assuming that in any given set you are training at an RPE of 7 or greater. For more information about RPE, check out our video on what it is and how to use it. So to recap, the ideal rep range for hypertrophy is between 6 and 14 repetitions if your goal is muscle growth. Why a range instead of just one static number? Well, that's because different exercises will require different amounts of repetitions due to their level of difficulty. But when do we use the other repetition ranges? Well, we can use the 1 to 5 rep range for lower volume and higher load for a strength block to, well, improve strength, help maintain muscle that has already grown, and also resensitize our muscle to a hypertrophy stimulus. And we can use the 15 to 30 rep range at lighter loads to offset some of the fatigue built up in our joints, ligaments, and bones, with the moderate to heavy loads used in the 6 to 14 repetition range. This is important to reduce the risk of injury as muscle grows a lot faster than ligament does, so if not offset, can lead to some serious trouble. Also, you can use a little bit of the 1 to 5 rep range and a little bit of the 15 to 30 rep range in your training to ensure you get the most out of your growth, as it's been proving that using a mix of the repetition ranges is better for hypertrophy, but not by a whole lot. My advice, save yourself the trouble and anxiety and stick to dedicated phases at each repetition range at any given training block. That's it for now. Happy training.